Hello everyone, welcome to another part of 2025 AMCA problems, and in this part we will be solving from question number 20 to 22. We will be doing the harder problems in this part, so be careful, and if you haven't watched the previous few parts for question number 1 to 19, just go and watch them for some good strategies to how to go about the AMCA problems quickly and in an efficient manner. So we will be working on question number 20 today now. Now, the problems will become harder. It's not that they're not solvable. It's just that we need some more strategies and ideas and good conceptual understanding to go about these problems. Let's read through the 20th problem first. It says Sarika, Dev, and Rajiv are sharing a large block of cheese. They take turns cutting off half what remains and eating it. For example, first Sarika eats, let's say this is my block of cheese. So Sarika eats one half of the cheese. This is the first. Then again, half of what is remaining is what Dev eats. Half of what is remaining is what Rajiv eats. And then back to Sarika for half of what is remaining. So the pattern continues like this. And if you would have learned geometric series, you would have seen this is the pattern of the square that I am forming is an example of an infinite geometric series. But we will come to that concept later. But first let's understand that if it was one of a piece, so Sarika ate half, Dev ate 1/4, Rajiv ate 1/8. Next piece was 1/16, which again Sarika ate, and the pattern continues. Now, if you look at the question asks us about what fraction of the original block of cheese does Sarika eat in total. So we have to find out Sarika's piece in total. And if you look at it's every fourth number. So we start from the first, which is one half is what Sarika eat. Then it is 1/16, which will Sarika eat. And so on. If you make patterns, it will be 1 over 32. Next will be 1 over 64. And the next number that Sarika eats will be 1 over 128. So the next number in Sarika's total is 1 over 128. Now, the pattern that in which they are eating the cheese is a geometric sequence because if you look at every next number is obtained by dividing into half. So that's an example of a geometric sequence if you would have learned about. And but what about Sarika eats? I don't want the first sequence, right? I want the second sequence. Now, if I look at the second sequence, I will realize that the first term is 1 over 2. Next term, 1 over 2 to 1 over 16, I will obtain by dividing by 4, right? But what about 1 over 128? Is that also being obtained by dividing by 4? We are also checking whether that's also being obtained by a geometric series pattern, right? So if I take 16 and I divide that, so this is not division by 4, this is division by 8, sorry, because 2 times 8 makes it a 16, right? And now we have to check if 16 times 8 is also 128. That's also true. So Sarika's piece is another geometric sequence, which I can see where my A is 1 half and my R, the common ratio, is 1/8 because I'm dividing by 8 every time. But will this geometric sequence end? Will I be able to find out the last piece that Sarika eats? No, because I don't know how small of pieces they start to eat. So to find this out, this is an infinite geometric sequence. This is a good concept that you must learn in sequence and series. After you learn arithmetic series, you must learn geometric series and specifically the case for infinite as well. Infinite geometric series have a formula that if you want to find the sum of an infinite geometric series, that you can do by doing S is equal to, so the sum is equal to, we will say, A divided by 1 minus R. That's the formula for my infinite geometric series. It's represented by S infinity because I'm adding up the terms to infinity. So here also infinite geometric series S infinity, I will do A, which is half divided by 1 minus R, which is 1/8. Now when I do the calculations, I will get 1 half divided by 7/8 Now multiply the two fractions. You will get 1 by 2 multiplied by 8 by 7, which will give you your answer as 4 by 7. So the total pieces that Sarika ate out of one two whole of the cake is 4 over 7, right? The idea was to first look at the pattern that each one of them eats, segregate the pattern that Sarika eats, right? And then look at it that also forms a geometric sequence. What is essential here is to remember the formula for infinite geometric series. And once you learn the formula for infinite geometric series, then it is quite easy to solve for. Although it is a 20th question, but if somebody who knows the formula for infinite geometric series, it is very easy for you. Let's move to the next problem. This is an interesting problem, and it's a 21st problem. This will take some time for you to evaluate the pattern identified in the problem. So hence read through the problem carefully. It says the Coinsburg School has assigned grade 1 to 7 through pods from A to G. So alphabets have been assigned for grades from 1 to 7. One grade per pod. Some of the pods are connected by walkways as shown in the figure below. The school noticed that each pair of connected pods has been assigned grades differing by 2 or more grade levels, which means the pods which are connected so far have only have a difference of 2 or more. They cannot have a difference of 1 grade. For example, grade 1 and 2 will not be connected directly. Now we don't know which one of the alphabets has been defined which grade, but that is what we have to look at as a pattern by looking at the pods that they have been connected to. So we have to find out the sum of the grades assigned to C, E, and F. Now, the whole idea behind solving this problem is to look for patterns in the problem and see where do you get which grade can be assigned where, right? And a good strategy to solve about such problems of connections or circles being joined where we have to find out sums is to locate that circle which is connected the most. For example, if I look at A, that's connected to four possibilities. Similarly, if I look at B, that's connected to only three possibilities. If I look at C, that's connected to one, two, three, four, five possibilities, right? And similarly, if I look at D, that's only connected again to two possibilities. So looking at the ones that have been assigned the highest, I can see that C is the one that's connected to the highest number of possibilities, right? And F is the one that's connected to again the highest number of possibilities, both of the same number, 5 and 5, right? B is fine, it has 3. A is also fine, it has 4. G is also fine, it has 2. Uh, C has more. D has also 2. So G and D, if you look at, have less in value, while C and F are the highest in value, right? That's the whole idea. Now, looking at the problem, which numbers do you think will have a higher grade? For example, if it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. If I look at 1 can't be connected to 2. However, 1 can be connected to 5 such grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Similarly, if I look at 7 cannot be connected to 6, but it can be connected to 5 such grades. So the two numbers that we can see that have 5 connections, those two numbers can either be C or F, and they can either be assigned 1 or they can be assigned 7. Because if I look at 2 can't be connected to 1 and 3, and 2 can only be connected to 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Because the difference has to be 2 or more than 2. So it can either be connected to 4 such possibilities, right? So the 4 connection numbers we can look at, one of which we have identified is 2, right? And in the diagram also we can see the ones that have 4 connections. A has 4 connections, right? B has only 3 connections. Any other number which you can see has 4 connections so far? I don't think so. So we will go one by one assigning them, but we don't need to write down all these connections and take possibilities. We can start off with the easiest and then think about it, right? Because that will make it faster for us. So first observation is C and F, right? So any one of it we could assign, because what is important is the sum here and not which one is assigned which value. They're not specifically asking you for the answer of the value of C. They're asking you sum of C, E, and F. So in that case, because C and F are both involved, so it does not matter which one are you assigning 1 or 7. So I'm assigning 1 to, let's say, C, and I'm assigning 7 to, let's say, F, right? Now, next thing I want to look about is the ones with least possibilities. For example, D and G, right? They have been given only two connections. Now, which are those numbers that you think will have only two connections, right? For example, if I look at 6, let's say, right? 6 is a number which won't be connected to F, right? And can I say D is the only number which is not connected to F, right? In such a case, can we assign D the value as 6? Because one number which is far off from F, not connected to F, is D, right? So that is why, because D and F have, if I put on D6, only then D and F cannot be connected. Similarly, if C is 1, the only number it's not connected to is G, so which means G must be assigned the variable 2, right? So using 1 and 7, I allotted my 6 and 7, 2 and 6 also, because I knew that 2 and 6 shouldn't have been put at a number or a place where they are connected to their next adjacent number. So I started off that way. Now we are left with A, B, and E. And the numbers that we are left with, we have used 1, we have used 2, we have used 6 and 7. So we're left with the middlemost three numbers, which is 3, 4, and 5. Now, if I look at A has 4 possible connections. If I look at B, it has 3 such possible connections, right? And E, if I look at, has again 3 possible connections, right? Also, A and B are just next to each other, which means out of 3, 4, and 5, right? The Since A and B are connected to each other, they can't be adjacent numbers. So they can't be a pair of 3 or 4, 4 or 5. So they necessarily have to be either 3 or 5, right? No matter if I can put 3 here or 5 here, that I will have to check. But A and B necessarily will not be adjacent to each other numbers. So they'll be either 3 or 5, which leaves us with the only possibility for E as 4. Now, because I was only concerned about finding the sum for C, E, and F, then I can say C, E, and F adds up to 1, 7, and 4, which makes it a total of 12 as my answer, right? So it is not an easy question. We are taking all the possibilities here, but the idea is to visualize which possibility works the best with which one, right? Thinking about the 5 connection case, that's a strategy. Thinking about A and B can't be adjacent to each other, so they can be 3 or 5, that's a strategy. So some of the key observations, if you start making for such numbers of connections and roots, only then you will be able to evaluate such problems. They are harder. You might not get enough amount of time to solve in the paper, but it's always a good exercise to solve or wreck your brain with such a problems, right? This was a good question. Now let's move to the next question, which is the last question for a video, the 22nd question. The question says, a classroom has a row of 35 coat hooks. Paulina likes coats to be equally spaced so that there's the same number of empty hooks before the first coat and the last coat, and between every coat also, and the next one as well. Suppose there's at least one coat and at least one empty hook. So the pattern is a bit trickier to read through, but we have drawn a diagram for your reference that it is before the first coat, after the last coat, and between two coats. The number of empty hooks must exactly be the same. We know in total there are 25 coat hooks. We have to evaluate how many different numbers of coat can I put in on my coat hooks, such that in such a case this pattern that Paulina wants to agree to is satisfied, right? The idea is to be able to get the number of coats or put the number of coats in such a manner, right? There can be a lot more possibilities. However, I have to look at those possibilities so as to how many codes can I put such that this pattern is agreed for, right? I'm basically looking for the number of quotes and how many different number of quotes. I'm not looking for the number of quotes, I'm looking for how many different number of quotes can I use, right? Let's think about this idea first, right? Now, I don't know the number of quotes, so let's say the number of quotes is X for me, right? I'm using X quotes. The property that I know is that, let's say if I'm putting X quotes on my quote track, the number of gaps that I will have in between. I don't know how many hooks am I leaving in between, but the number of gaps will always be one more than the number of quotes, because let's say if I have hung two quotes in this, then there are three gaps. Can you see that? Because one will be before, one will be after, one will be in the middle, right? And obviously, if the number is in more than two also, then also this pattern satisfies. Let's say if there were four quotes that were hung, right? Or three quotes that were hung, the number of gaps is 1, 2, 3, and 4, if you can see that, right? So number of gaps is always going to be one more than the number of quotes that I hung. So this is the number of quotes that I have, and number of gaps will just be one more, right? This is easy to visualize. Look at a pattern, take smaller numbers for yourself, and then think about it, right? Now moving on ahead, we have counted the number of gaps, remember. We haven't counted how many empty hooks are there in that gap, right? Because here you can see it's 2. It could have been 1 also, right? That's not a matter of concern for Paulina. She just wants the number of hooks to be exactly the same in the middle, right? So the number of gaps also ought to have the same number of hooks. So let's take the number of hooks that are empty, or number of empty hooks in each gap that I have. Let's say bx, right? Because which is going to be the same number of empty hooks. Now there are y empty hooks in x plus 1 gaps, right? So that makes y times x plus 1 empty hooks, because you're leaving, for example, in this, number of gaps is 3, number of hooks in each gap is 2, which is 6, and number of quotes is 2. So that makes I have used 8 total hooks here, right? Similarly here, number of empty hooks in each gap, not total, in each gap is y. Number of gaps are x plus 1, so y times x plus 1. And I have also used hooks for not leaving them empty, because I ideally have to hang quotes, right? Which is x plus 1. And this totals up to my total number of hooks, which is 35. That's the whole idea that you need to use for this problem to solve it, which is you look at the number of quotes, you look at the number of gaps, you assign another variable for number of empty hooks in each gap, empty hooks multiplied by the number of gaps. This gives you this. If you look at the first part, is exactly empty hooks, and the second one is exactly occupied hooks. And if you add both of them, that totals up to a 35. Now, how do we solve this problem? Do we isolate the variable y? Do we isolate the variable x? And remember, all of them have to be integral value and have to be greater than 1. Now, one way to factorize it is, because this is so far, a quadratic in terms of x and y, right? But it's in terms of two variables. So to factorize it, one way was to, which a lot of students might get stuck on, is a very easy strategy. One part of it is already factorized for you. If you just add a 1 to both the sides, the equation won't change. But what will happen will be your factorization will become very easy. Because if you look at the two terms now, you can now take out x plus 1 common out of the two terms. In the bracket, you'd be left with y plus 1, which adds up to 36. So this means you have two numbers, x plus 1 and y plus 1, multiplying to give you 36 as your answer. Now you can either look at what are the factors of 36 that multiplied, the factors that multiply to give you 36. For example, if you start with, it will be 1 times 36, it will be 2 times 18, it would be 3 times 12, 4 times 9, you will also have 6 times 6, right? Now in each of the possibilities, these value will equal to x plus 1 times y plus 1, right? And I have to look at what are the possibilities that x and y can satisfy. And obviously they can go reverse also. I've just written down the unique ones. We will also have to take the reverse ones, because that has to agree, right? Now if I look at 1 and 36 can't be my answer, Because x plus 1, if it is 1, then the number of quotes that I am hanging is 0. But it says the number of empty hooks as well as the number of your quotes that has to be greater than 0, right? The number of hooks that you're leaving in between and the number of quotes has to be greater than 0, or which means it has to be greater than 1. In fact, at least 1, because it says, right? So that's why this can't be my answer. And it has to be strictly greater than 1, right? Number of quotes has to be, c plus 1 has to be greater than 1. So at least 1 we are saying. So at least 1 quote and at least 1 empty hook. If I take x plus 1, for example, as 2, then I'll get x as 1, right? And I will get y plus 1 is 18, which is y is 17, right? So these are my possibilities. So at least one quote is being hanged. So this is a satisfied condition. Similarly, I could take x as 3. I could take x as 4. I could take x. Can I take x as 6 also? X plus 1 is 6. This will give me x is equal to 5, right? So that will be satisfied. So I can take x as 6. So that will be 4 such possibilities, right? And there can be 3 more possibilities, which will be the reverse. For example, what if x plus 1 is 18 and y plus 1 is 2? That is also a possibility, right? Because then in that case, I will have 17 quotes hanging and there'll be 1 in between each gap, right? So 17 quotes hanging and one hook left empty in between each. That will also add up to 35 total hooks, right? So 4 such possibilities. We cannot reverse the last possibility because that will still give us the same answer. So 4 and 3, that makes a total of 7 such possibilities is my answer, right? So the whole idea behind solving the problem was to be able to list down the possibilities, make an equation for yourself as to how you're solving it, empty, occupied two variables, then factorizing is one thing you might get stuck on, but then taking the factors and the possibilities is quite easy, and you finally get your answer as total of 7 possibilities where the number of quotes can change. Also remember, the question is not about number of quotes. The question is about how many different number of quotes can satisfy Paulina's pattern. So then my answer is going to be that there are 7 different number of quotes that when you hang, for example, you can hang 17 quotes or you can hang 1 quote and so on and so forth. In all such cases, Paulina's pattern will be satisfied, right? So there are 7 such numbers of quotes where Paulina's pattern will be satisfied. So all of these problems that we discussed were slightly harder, but they require a certain concept or a strategy to go about. For example, in this question, it required your factorization technique, which will help you to solve for it, right? Otherwise, the problem is stuck like an equation. So you ought to know the concept strongly to be able to solve such problems. I hope you understood the problems. All the best.